Hello everyone, my name is Kevin with Alpha One IT, and welcome to Mastering Windows Server 2022, your go-to series for all things Windows Server. So with that, let's dive in. In this video, we're going to be installing the Active Directory Domain Services, better known as ADDS, on our Windows Server 2022 virtual machine. In doing so, we're going to be installing the Active Directory Domain Services role, configuring the domain, and then promoting a domain controller within the domain, and then we're actually going to log into the domain, but basically just using our domain controller for that. So with that, let's jump into our virtual machine. Alright, so we're on our virtual machine here, which I've set up in a previous video, and right now we're going to be jumping into the process of installing Active Directory Domain Services on the Windows Server 2022. Basically, this is a crucial step for anybody looking to manage network resources and users effectively and efficiently. You want to make sure that you're practicing this in a test environment if you can, and as always, if you're using a virtual machine, virtual environment, or anything else like that, please, before you make any configuration changes, always attempt to snapshot the virtual machine, so that way if anything happens, any point, along in this video, something gets messed up or whatever the case is, you can always roll it back, and you can also do this multiple times, so that way you kind of get used to the whole process itself. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started into this. First, you basically want to ensure that your server meets all the prerequisites. You're going to need the server 2022 installed. Make sure that you have a static IP address assigned, which for this one, it's currently going to be assigned by DHCP, but we can change that by if we go into here and we get our Ethernet, we're going to go properties. We're going to go IPv4 properties, use the following IP address, and if you want to, open a PowerShell. And we're going to go ipconfig. And as you can see right now, we're assigned the 192.168.1.39. So we can come in here. We go 192.168.1. and pull it here, 39. So punch that in. And I have a typo there, but not a problem. 39. And we're going to go with this being a 24 subnet, so 255.255.255.0. And then we're going to go to DNS. We're going to set our DNS for here. Right now we're just going to use Google DNS. And we'll do the 1.1.1.1, so that way we have two different types of DNS here. Close it. And then we're going to go back over here. ipconfig. Still have the same IP address. We go up here, we reload inventory. And you can see we have a statically assigned IP address, which is awesome. That's exactly what we're looking for. And then you want to make sure that it is on the proper network. So this one being an internal one, the 192.168.1, 24 subnet, works out perfectly for that. So then next we're going to make sure that we have all of our updates installed on the machine. So you can go to settings, update security, populate here. You can see for me, I just made sure that I was updated right before recording this. And that's what you always want to make sure is make sure you have all of your servers updated with the latest patches. So that's security and feature patches. Now we have server manager here, and we're going to go to manage. And we're going to go to add roles and features. And then you can read this if you want to, but basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to do installation. We're going to do role-based or feature-based. It's going to be on the local server itself. We're going to do server selection. Make sure DCO1 is the one that's selected. If you have multiple virtual machines in there, you can choose which one you're going with, but we're going to go to server roles, and then we're going to look for Active Directory Domain Services. We're going to click that. We're going to add all of our features and group policy manager and everything that's associated with it. Then we're going to add features. We're going to select next, and we're going to leave this as default. We're not going to make any additional changes to features. Hit next, and it's going to say, hey, you're going to be installing the Active Directory Domain Services. And so you can read through this if you want to, but for time's sake, we're going to click next. And then it tells us this is what we're going to be installing on here. We're going to be doing the Active Directory Domain Services, Group Policy Management, Remote Server Administration Tools, aka RSAT. If you're not familiar with that, that's how you manage a lot of stuff within a domain. And then we're going to hit install. Now it's going to go through the process of installing. Alright, so that is going to be finished installing right there. So we can go ahead and we can close this out. And now if you see up here in the server manager up in the right hand corner, you have this little notification up here. You're going to click this, and then you can see right here, post deployment configuration. So now we're going to click promote the server to the domain controller. We'll bring this a little bit center. And now we are in the deployment configuration. So for the deployment configuration, this is going to be add a new forest, because this is going to be the first domain controller with the environment, within this environment, if you were to be adding it to an existing, domain, a new domain to an existing forest. So if you're doing like subdomain or something like that, there's a difference between being in a domain and being forest. Forest is a much higher level as opposed to a domain. Domain can be a subdomain to a forest. We'll go into that a little bit further later on if we want to. But for now, we're going to click Add New Forest, and we're going to do a domain name. And for this one, we're just going to do test.local. No, we're not doing Contoso. If you're familiar with Microsoft documentation, they use Contoso for everything. So, all right, so forest function level, we want to leave at 2016. Domain function level is 2016 as well. Even though this is a server 2022, the schema and function level kind of capped currently right now at 2016. They haven't decided that I'm aware of if they're going to be bumping that up any, but at least it's going to be at the latest. Next, we're going to be setting the directory services restore mode password, and this is going to be DSRM password. And this is kind of one of those break glass in case of emergency type things, because it's a critical security feature used in Active Directory. It's used to boot the domain controller into the directory services restore mode, which is basically a safe mode for repairing or recovering Active Directory database. In the cases of recovery and maintenance, if you have a corruption or something like that, you can use the DSRM, basically the password, to allow your administrators to perform essential recovery and maintenance tasks for security. It restricts the access to the Active Directory, the DSRM, to ensure that only authorized personnel can perform sensitive recovery operations, because it's basically keys to the kingdom to be able to pull and extract basically any information from there if you want to. And it's another level of access control for recovery. So we're going to set our password. Really recommend you use something extremely strong in production environments, but this is test, so I'll use a little bit less strong password. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to leave this for the DNS delegation zone. And we're going to click next. It's verifying the NetBIOS name right now is going to be assigned to it. It's going to change. We can change it if we want to, but we're going to leave it. The NetBIOS name is going to be test. So we're going to click next. And next is going to be the paths. These are the different locations for the database, log files, and the sysvol folder, which we'll go into those a little bit further later on. But just know that these are critical components for the actual Active Directory /domain itself on this domain controller. If you have additional volumes and you don't want to put it in the OS volume, then you can put it somewhere else. But this is, once again, test. I know you're going to hear that a couple 100,000 times from me, but test environment is test, so let's treat it as such. So click next. And then it's going to say, hey, look, cool. You're going to be installing all this. You're going to be creating the DNS server. You're going to be setting this as the EGC. And all your other features. If you want to view the script, you can view the script here. Pretty basic, pretty simple, straightforward. It's just a simple PowerShell script. And click next. And it's going to run a prerequisite checks. You are going to get some errors on here. Please just know that it's nothing too crazy. And if it is something crazy, it's going to require you to look into it a little bit more. And it's going to populate those here in just a second. All right, so these are the results I was talking about. Something that you don't really have to worry about too much. It's just basically letting you, hey, for these, it's using these algorithms. It uses IPv4 and IPv6 on the computer itself. Just know that can cause issues. And delegation for the DNS zone cannot be created because the authoritative parent zone cannot be found or it does not run Windows DNS service. Being this is the first one, doesn't really exist right now. So prerequisite checks are completed. They pass successfully, even though we have warnings, but warnings are not failures, so that's good. Click install. And now this is going to run through the installation of the actual ADDS and promote for this one. Actually, ADDS is already installed technically. Now we're just promoting this to a domain controller and creating the actual domain itself. So this is going to run through this whole process. It's going to modify the DNS server, add that forward lookup zone, and then whenever it gets done with all this, it's going to reboot, and then we're going to have to log in with the administrator account into our new domain. And with that, we'll see you here in just a minute. And now that all that configuration has been done, it is going to reboot the computer now. All right, so as you can see here, this is going to be our new domain controller. We have test/administrator, so that lets us know, hey, we're going to be logging into the test environment or the test domain as I currently set up, because it is test.local. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to type in our password here. It's going to be the same one that you use for your administrator account. So if you had that one on hand beforehand, it is going to be the same password. And with that, just know this is going to be a domain admin account, and a domain admin is basically able to do, as it stands by default, to perform any action within a domain. So it can do any administrative task, any administrative feature that you can think of with this account. All right, and that took a few seconds, which is going to be normal. This is kind of like for, as you did previously, this is going to be your first time kind of logging into it. So this is the same computer, but this is now a domain controller. If we go over here we go to local server on the left-hand side of our server manager, and you can see computer name is going to be DC01, and it is going to be test.local. And without going too far in depth on things, if you go to your start menu and you type in Active Directory, and we're going to go to Active Directory users and computers. We'll cover some of those other tools that you just seen here momentarily, or actually in one of the next videos coming up here soon. So you can see we are in our Active Directory users and computers of DC01, which is going to be this domain controller test.local. And you can see here for the domain test.local. So congratulations, you now have your first domain controller within your environment. I will show you eventually how to add additional domain controllers, how to migrate domain controllers, how to change FSMA roles, how to use some of these utilities such as Active Directory users and computers, sites and services, Active Directory Administrative Center, recycling bin for Active Directory, a couple other things as well, including some PowerShell. And that's going to be it for this video. So if you guys found this video helpful, please make sure you guys, thumbs this up, subscribe. I appreciate everybody who watches it and takes time to actually watch these videos and learn something. And we're going to continue on with this video series of Mastering Windows Server 2022.